All right, Paul says, thanks for the discussion. Lovely to listen to despite the subject. Okay, let's get to some $20 ones and then I'll switch to Elon. Oh, Jeff is $91.10 from Canadian. The whole 9/11 truth or conspiracy really disturbed me. How did you feel about how that sadly took off and went so far? Okay, so that's one. We've got a couple of others on the same topic. Let me just do all these together. Was 9/11 an inside job? Why or why not? Why are there so many conspiracies surrounding the collapse of the towers as well as collusion with the US government? Okay, so just generally, the conspiracy theories right after, how do we explain those? Is there any validity to any of it? What do we make of the conspiracy theories? Really, a lot of it, some of it on the libertarians, among libertarians, the wacky right, some on the wacky left, but a lot of them. Elon, do you want to have any views on this?
I have repugnance for the conspiracy theories that have come out, and just as a phenomenon, I think it's a symptom of really poor thinking that people adopt these. And so, I mean, that's sort of the general observation. I think that another thing to know about conspiracy theories prior to 9/11, I think as a general phenomenon, but particularly with 9/11, I think it's a view that's not seeking truth. It's motivated by certain psychological and other motivations, and that's why whenever you push, oh, this doesn't integrate, this doesn't make sense, this falls apart, there's always another explanation. There's a meta explanation. There's another force behind the force. And I think that should just, anytime you see that, you should think this person is not looking to understand what happened. They're looking to defend a certain perspective. And usually it's pretty nasty or motivated by, I mean, I remember right after 9/11, the major one that was going around was the Jews didn't show up to work at the Twin Towers. Obviously the Jews are behind it. And it's the standard. I mean, there's so many conspiracy theories involving the Jews controlling the world. And I don't think those things are worth refuting because they're arbitrary. And if you're dealing with an individual who's swept up in this, there are things you might want to do if they're close to you and so on. But I think as a general phenomenon, I think they're really bad thinking and they're not concerned with the truth. That's the essential, I would add.
Anka?
I'd say so it was disturbing, and the 9/11 set in many deep ways the trend in American politics and American culture for the 21st century. Mm-hmm. And I think so, and because we live now where conspiracy theories are even much more prominent now than they were, and it's not right to call them theories, they're conspiracy fantasies. Yep. And they're akin to religion. So when religions start, what they look like is these kinds of fantasies. I think of the Mormon religion as a modern, a fairly modern one. It's indistinguishable from these kind of conspiracy fantasies. That is possible in a more religious era, which we are now. But I would add, the more it's obvious that the mainstream is evasive, the more you open the door for these, like, I've got something as good as what you guys say. So if you start right after 9/11 and say religion has nothing to do with this, people can pick up that what we've got is massive evasion, that nobody is willing to actually state what is pretty obvious. And in that kind of environment, you open the door for, you put it like the wacky part, you've opened the door because you've got a whole environment, and it feels like it's saturated with people who don't care about the truth. And these are people who then come out of the woodwork, in fact.
So I think all that's right. I think it's a really interesting topic because I do think there's a reason why we're so surrounded now by conspiracy theories everywhere, and it's a particular state of, it says a lot about the state of the culture and the state of the world. But it really is conspiracies filled a void where the intellectuals have failed, and that's a point you were making, Anka, about the explanations. People want explanations. They might not want the truth, but they want explanations. They want to have some way in which to understand the world around them that they can comprehend. And conspiracy theories are always simple, right? The Jews did it. The elders of Zion. It's this group, that group. That's easy, right? They want to take over the world. They blew us up. I mean, it doesn't. And yeah, if you think about it a little bit, it's all stupid, but they don't think. But it really is, they fill that gap where the intellectual should be actually providing explanations, actually providing context. And when there's no leadership, no intellectual leadership, no principled explanation of what's going on in the world, what you get is filling in the gaps. You get these conspiracies, and they gain credibility usually by pretending to be scientific, or by latching onto something true and then distorting it or perverting it. So, one of the questions was about the towers collapsing. Why was this such a big theory? Well, the towers collapsed straight down. They all went down, and people think the towers would collapse like this. I mean, you could go over all these things. So people don't know anything about engineering, and then somebody makes some claim about that metal can't melt at X amount of degrees, and then suddenly it becomes scientific, and everybody latches on. At least it's an explanation. There must have been charges, but it's all nonsense, and you can refute them with 5 minutes Googling, right? Where civil engineers actually explain to you exactly what happened and how the towers collapsed and how it's completely consistent. Where people explain exactly who wasn't in the towers, but they're not truth seekers. They just got their simple explanation. It makes their world fit in some perverted, distorted way, and they move on. And given that the government and now intellectuals give, in a sense, even worse explanations, more evasive explanations, people go with the conspiracies. And I think that's only gotten worse because our leadership has gotten even more evasive. The world has gotten more complex in a sense, and there are fewer explanations. The financial crisis, and now with COVID, people are bombarded with stuff and they don't know how to explain it, and nobody gives them nobody is helping them explain it, so they get attracted to
cut in? So Yaron, I just want to make a slightly less charitable perspective on this. So I agree that one of the motivations that go into this and what appeals to people is it's an explanation in the absence of something else. And again, you have to study this in more depth, and different people's motivations, I think, differ. One thing that is true today of conspiracy theories, and I don't know if this was as true with the truthers when they came out, but I think today the phenomenon, so Onkar mentioned it's indistinguishable from a new religion or a religion. Sure. I think one thing you see is it becomes part of people's identity to believe in this. And I think they get some sort of fake sense of self-esteem. Like, I'm on the inside of this, be reasonable. I mean, I've talked to people who give off this vibe. It's like, you don't know that half of it. And then there's something to it. Like, I'm in an elevated position and you're all scrambling for scraps from these people and telling you what they're feeding you all this bullshit. Yep. And I know the truth, and the truth with a capital T, and whatever it is, what is 9/11 or something else. And I think that it ties in with the tribalism and sort of religious thinking that goes along with that we have so much of today.
That's exactly the role of religion, right? Religion fills in that gap and gives people explanations, and they don't have to think about them. So it's the conspiracy theories are serving the same purpose religion did, 500 years ago, and still does for people in terms of giving them an explanation of a world they can't comprehend, and they don't want to, and they're too lazy to do it. And yeah, I mean, you're being charitable to the people who say that. I mean, charitable maybe is not the right word, but the names I've been called because I've completely bought into the mainstream media, and I listen to CNN all day, and they have a direct link to the people who know the truth, whether it turns out QAnon or what's his name, Alex Jones, the kooks running around, but they have the truth, and they call themselves truthers because, it's a capital T truth. It's revealed truth that they have. They don't need facts. They don't need evidence. They never do provide them other than saying, I just know. We've got it, inside information. We just know. And you guys are just buying into the left's the media stuff. It's brutal. They get very, very, very angry. All right.
And to begin with, I wonder if I can ask you to capsulize. I know this is difficult. Can I ask you to capsulize your philosophy? What is Randism?
First of all, I do not call it Randism, and I don't like that name. I call it objectivism.
All right.
Meaning a philosophy based on objective reality. Now let me explain it as briefly as I can. First, my philosophy is based on the concept that reality exists as an objective absolute, that man's mind, reason, is his means of perceiving it, and that man needs a rational morality. I am primarily the creator of a new code of morality which has so far been believed impossible, namely a morality not based on faith.
On faith?
Not on faith, not on arbitrary whim, not on emotion, not on arbitrary edict, mystical or social, but on reason, a morality which can be proved by means of logic, which can be demonstrated to be true and necessary.
All right, all right.
Now, may I define what my morality is?
All right.
Because this is merely an introduction. My morality is based on man's life as a standard of value. And since man's mind is his basic means of survival, I hold that if man wants to live on earth and to live as a human being, he has to hold reason as an absolute, by which I mean that he has to hold reason as his only guide to action, and that he must live by the independent judgment of his own mind, that his highest moral purpose is the achievement of his own happiness, and that he must not force other people, nor accept their right to force him, that each man must live as an end in himself and follow his own rational self-interest.
All right, before we go on, reminder, please like the show. We've got 163 live listeners right now, 30 likes. That should be at least 100. I figure at least 100 of you actually like the show. Maybe there are like 60 of the Matthews out there who hate it. But at least the people who are liking it, you know, I want to see a thumbs up. There you go. Start liking it. I want to see that go to 100. All it takes is a click of a thing, whether you're looking at this. And you know, the likes matter. It's not an issue of my ego. It's an issue of the algorithm. The more you like something, the more the algorithm likes it. So, you know, and if you don't like the show, give it a thumbs down. Let's see your actual views being reflected in the likes. But if you like it, don't just sit there. Help get the show promoted. Of course, you should also share. And you can support the show at JeronBrookShow.com/support, or on Patreon or Subscribestar or Locals, and show your support for the work, for the value hopefully you're receiving from this. And of course, don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, even if you just come here to troll, or even if you're here like Matthew to defend Marx, then you should subscribe, because that way you'll know when to show up. You'll know what shows are on, when they're on. You'll get notified, right? So, yes, like, share, subscribe, support. Like, share, subscribe, support. There you go. Easy. Do one or all of those, please.